So let's talk about 6 mistakes that you want to avoid in retirement. Now, according to the Federal Reserve, this is a significant statistic. Only 31% of non-retired adults, that's not a big number, feel like their finances are on track for retirement. That's pretty sad. So if you're watching our channel right now, we're going to share these 6 ideas with you. You're going to be ahead of the curve. And that's what we're here to help you with, to make sure you're in that 31% that feels good about their retirement and not the other folks, the 69 that don't. So let's talk about these 6 mistakes. Mistake number 1, this isn't always a fun topic to talk about, but it's underestimating how long you are going to live. I can tell you that many times people come into our office and they'll say, well, you know, my parents only lived to their mid-60s and whatnot, and so, you know, I retired a few years ago. I'm probably not going to live that long. That's a huge mistake. Life expectancies in America, especially with medical advancements, you think about how everything has advanced in our society and our culture. Medicine has had phenomenal advancements that's now allowing people to live significantly longer. In fact, what our firm tells folks is that if you're a healthy man in America, it would be very common to see men living into their mid to upper 80s, and for women, very, very common to see them living well into their 90s. In fact, the amount of centenarians in America, which are people that are living over age 100, in particular women, is growing every single year. So what you want to do is you want to plan things like your income, believe it or not, for as long in your retirement years as you lived in your working years. That's really happening over and over and again. Of course, we do that at Beacon through a written income plan. Again, you know, longevity, death, those kinds of things are not fun to talk about, but you do live with a lot more peace of mind if you have a specific plan for life longevity. So mistake number 1 you want to avoid is underestimating how long that you may live. Mistake number 2 is another really key important point that really starts at retirement, and that is taking Social Security at the wrong time. You know, so many people think that Social Security is pretty simple. You either take it at 62 or you take it at full retirement, or you take it at 70. Well, the fact is there's over 2,800 rules that apply to how you can take Social Security. So for some people, they need to take it at 62 because they don't have anything else. But if you do that, if you don't need to do that, you probably don't want to do that, although everyone's situation is different. This is why you need a plan. One of the things that we also do at our firm is what's called a Social Security Maximization Report, where we can load your personal Social Security statements. If you don't know where those are, you can go to socialsecurity.org and print that off. We can load your personal information into our software and tell you when is the most opportune time for you and your family to take Social Security. If you don't need it at 62 and you take it, I call it signing up for a permanent reduction. You're going to pay more in taxes and you got a permanent reduction. Another sometimes flawed philosophy is, well, I'm not going to take it at full retirement. Let's say full retirement is 66 and 2 months, because between 66 and 2 months, or whatever your full retirement is, and 70, you get a guaranteed 8% compound from the government. That's true, and that can be absolutely a great strategy, but you got to remember when it comes to finance and income, there's a cause and effect to anything that you do. So the question that you want to have a plan for and really be able to plan out is, if you take it at whatever age, what is the cause and effect on your other assets? Not just your IRAs, but your Roths and your non-qualified or brokerage accounts. So all of that needs to be considered on your income, and that should determine when you take Social Security. Now, Social Security, it accounts for about 20 to 30% of someone's income needs in America on average, and it's really shocking how many people will just make a random choice without really planning that out. You have to remember that Social Security, between you and your employer, you put in 12.4% a year, every year, and you probably wouldn't take 20 to 30% of your portfolio and say, I don't want to have a plan for it. You shouldn't do that with your Social Security either. You need to have a plan. So mistake number 3 is not having a written retirement plan, and you only rely on Social Security for income. You know, we believe in having a written plan. You think about how hard you have worked for 20 or 30 and sometimes 40 years of your life. Probably over that period of time, you probably took a vacation. My family and I go down to Florida every year, like the half of the rest of Nashville. We probably see some of you down there. My wife's a school teacher and she's a planner. We don't go anywhere on vacation without everything being mapped out. And when I talk to most people, they will absolutely map out their vacations, or if they're doing yard work, you're not going to do landscaping or a project in your house because those are significant investments. Well, think about your retirement. Your retirement is something you have saved for and delayed gratification and raised the family your entire life for 20 or 30 years. Why would you get to this point and expect anything less than a written plan that's a guide, just like going on a vacation? And how would you know if you live 30 years in retirement, if you're ahead of the curve or behind or ahead of your goals, if you don't have a written plan that's following you through? You absolutely should demand a written plan that's sort of like a guide that follows you all the way through the various stages of your retirement. So mistake number 3 is not having a written plan. Now, mistake number 4 is also one that very few people really plan for, and that is being underprepared for healthcare costs. You know, we're coming out of an environment where we've had inflation that's at a 40-year high, and that has impacted many families across America. But the truth is, healthcare inflation, the cost of healthcare, has been going up for a very long time, about 4 times the rate of normal inflation. There are some surveys and articles and studies that indicate that if you're a boomer in America today, there's 70 million boomers retiring at a clip of about 10,000 a day in America. Many of them are underprepared or not prepared at all for healthcare costs. A lot of surveys and studies indicate that if you're a boomer, outside of long-term care or catastrophic care, you need to allocate somewhere between $150,000 to $250,000 just for additional healthcare costs. If you think about stages of life, retirement and as we age is a place where your healthcare costs probably go up. You need to have a budget. You need to plan for healthcare and make sure that you have healthcare costs and plans that really meet you and your family where you're at based on your history. Huge mistake to not be prepared for healthcare. And you know, one of the things that we do in our firm is we do what we call 5 pillars. In fact, we won't even take a client unless they'll walk through this process with us. Number 1, these 5 pillars is an income plan. If you're retired, you shouldn't be out there wondering where your income's going to come from. Your income should have guarantees regardless of whether the market is going up or down. It's not a mistake that 83% of people in America approximately that are in retirement worry about income. That doesn't have to be your story. That shouldn't be your story. You need to have income that is adjusted for inflation, that's dependable and sustainable. You can have an income plan. You should have a written income plan. That's our first pillar. The second pillar is an investment plan that is catered to your specific goals and objectives, not your advisor's goals and objectives or your neighbors or your son or daughters, but your specific goals and objectives. What's the income that you want to pull off your portfolio? Investments are just tools, and there's thousands of them. None of them are necessarily right or wrong. They become wrong for you and your family when they don't meet your specific investment goals and objectives. If we were to meet with you today, could you walk into our office and show us a written income plan and a written investment plan? But it doesn't just stop there. What we also do for our clients, the third pillar, is a tax plan. It's no secret that the national debt in this country is astronomically high. It's at an all-time high, and it's growing every single day. What's your plan for taxes and tax brackets that today are actually historically low, but based on math are probably going to go up in the future? So many times people, as they approach or get into retirement, feel like there's nothing they can do relative to tax planning. I actually believe that retirement represents a time in your life where you have more control about how and when you pay taxes, but people do less planning. We have saved tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for people in tax savings through what we call forward-looking tax planning. You really do not need to leave a tip to the IRS. You really can effectively plan for taxes. Now, there's no free lunch. You can't avoid taxes, but you can reduce them and be efficient. So our third pillar is a tax plan. The fourth pillar is a healthcare plan. We just talked about that. Making sure you have a healthcare budget and a long-term care budget and things that could really impact your family or a surviving spouse if you're unprepared. And then all those 4 pillars are wrapped up with an estate plan or a legacy plan. You know, it would be a real shame, and according to the estate attorney that is on our team, 65% of Americans have no formal estate documents, no living will, no power of attorneys, no trust or anything like that. You need to have that. You need to protect what's inside. So those are something we'd love to do for you. Mistake number 5 is pretty simple, but profound and pretty easy, and that's forgetting to update your beneficiaries. Now, I think all of your money should be 110% controlled by you and your spouse or your significant other up until the day you die, which hopefully is many years from now. But if at the end of your life, you want that to go to your kids or grandkids. I have 3 boys of my own. You want to make sure that your beneficiaries on all of your accounts and all of your assets are updated exactly the way you want them to be. They need to be reviewed periodically because certainly those things can change. And then the 6th mistake kind of speaks to that 3rd pillar that I talked about in the Beacon Pillars process that we walk people through, and that is poor tax planning, and in most cases, I would say no tax planning. Again, we have a massive national debt in this country, and if we know anything about politics, regardless of your political silo or the side you're on, we are all going to pay taxes. You should have an effective tax plan that allows you to reduce taxes and to keep more of your very hard-earned money in your pockets. You know, folks come into my office all the time and their stories are all a little different, but they go a little bit like this. Hey, John, I worked as a firefighter or a police officer or a teacher or an architect or an attorney, or I worked in retail, or I was a physician, and I worked really hard for my money and I want it to be efficient. Well, one of the biggest thieves of your retirement, believe it or not, is the needless taxes you pay if you don't plan for that. So those really and truly are the 6 biggest mistakes that we find so many people make as they head into or are in retirement. That doesn't have to be your story. That should not be your story. Thanks for watching today. We really appreciate it. For more information just like this, subscribe on the button below on our channel. We'll talk to you soon.